Good evening, my name is Mutiara Faika binti Muhammad Rustam, and today I will be presenting my research about understanding public perceptions and adoption readiness of electric vehicles in Malaysia, a sentiment analysis and LDA-based topic modelling study. EV adoption in Malaysia is increasing, supported by government incentive, environmental awareness and better battery technology, but public opinion is not fully settled yet. To capture real perception, the study analysed YouTube comments because people tend to be very honest in the comment section. From 993 raw comments, 604 cleaned and translated comments were analysed using weather sentiment analysis and LDA topic modelling. The result shows that about half of the comments are positive, while a significant portion remains neutral, indicating cautious interest rather than full commitment. Negative sentiment mainly revolves around cost, battery lifespan, and charging accessibility. 5 dominant themes were identified, including total cost of ownership, charging infrastructure, battery lifetime, EV versus petrol car comparison, and adoption readiness. Overall, the study demonstrates that social media analytics can effectively complement traditional surveys in understanding EV adoption readiness in Malaysia. Alright, let's talk about the real issue behind EV adoptions in Malaysia. On paper, EV looks great. Government incentive, more models in the market, everyone talking about sustainability. But when you scroll through social media, especially YouTube comments, suddenly the story changes. People are not agreeing whether EVs are cool anymore. They are asking very practical questions like, is it worth the money? How long does the battery last? And where do I even charge this thing, especially in a highway? And honestly, these are very valid questions. No one wants to buy a car and then panic every time the battery drops below 20%, right? The problem is, even though these concerns are discussed openly online, manufacturers still don't have a clear answer to one big question: which issues actually matter the most to consumer? Most existing studies rely on surveys, very structured, very formal. But let's be honest, people don't always tell the full stories in survey. They tell the real story in comment sections. So the gap here is clear. We lack a data-driven understanding of real-world public sentiments and discussions, especially spontaneous opinions shared online. That's why the study looks at YouTube comments to capture what people really think, not what they think they're supposed to say. In short, EV adoptions in Malaysia is moving forward, but public readiness? That the part still needs better understanding. So, the study has 4 clear research objectives. First, I analyze how Malaysians feel about EVs by classifying public opinions into positive, negative, and neutral sentiment. Second, instead of guessing what people are talking about, I use LDA topic modelling to identify the main themes discussed online. Third, the study focused on very practical concerns: charging facilities, cost, battery performance, and whether EVs actually make sense for daily use. Basically, not is EV cool, but can I live with it? Finally, by combining sentiments and topic modelling, the study evaluates how this discussion influences adoption readiness in Malaysia. So, in short, this research connects what people feel, what they discuss, and whether they are ready to adopt EVs. Now, let's start with data explorations. For this study, YouTube comments were used because this is where people are very open about their opinions. The comments were collected from EV-related videos in Malaysia between January 2023 and December 2025 using keywords like EV in Malaysia, electric vehicles, or even electric car. Initially, 993 raw comments were collected using instant data scraper as shown in the screenshots. After cleaning and removing duplicates, 604 unique comments were retained for analysis. Before jumping into advanced modelling, I perform basic exploration such as word frequency analysis and simple visualization. From this early stage, it was already clear that discussion will heavily focus on charging, battery performance, cost, and real-life usability, which shows that public concerns are very practical, not theoretically. Next is data pre-processing, probably the least glamorous but most important part of the study. This workflow illustrates how raw, noisy social media text was transformed into clean and analyzable data. Because this data comes from social media, the comments were messy, emojis, slang, mixed languages, and sometimes repeated comments. So first, I removed noise such as emojis, links, symbols, and unnecessary characters, and converted all text to lowercase for consistency. Next, I perform deduplications, which reduce the dataset from 993 to 604 unique comments. This avoids over-representing repeated opinions. Since Malaysia is multi-language, comments were written in Bahasa Malaysia, English, Mandarin, and Tamil. To ensure consistency, all comments were translated into English using Google Translator. Finally, tokenization, stop word removal, and lemmatization were applied to prepare the text for sentiment analysis and topic modeling. Now, moving to the methodology. The study used a quantitative text analytic approach with an exploratory design. The goal here is not to test a hypothesis, but to discover patterns from real-world public discussion. First, sentiment analysis was performed using weather, which is well suited for informal social media text. Each comment were classified as positive, neutral, or negative based on its sentiment score. However, knowing how people feel is not enough. So the second method used was LDA to identify what people are actually talking about. The optimal number of topics was selected using coherence score to ensure meaningful and interpretable results. Finally, sentiment analysis and topic modeling were combined to understand how emotions and discussion themes together influence EV adoption readiness in Malaysia. So basically, this method answers both how people feel and why they feel that way. Let's start with the word frequency analysis. This chart shows the top 20 most frequently used words after data cleaning and stop word removal. We can clearly see dominant terms like EV, car battery, charging, cost, and petrol. What is interesting here is that these are not emotional words. They are very practical words. People are talking about batteries, charging, and cost, and they constantly compare EVs with petrol cars. This early result already tells us something important. Public discussion about EVs in Malaysia is not driven by ideology or environmental slogans. It's driven by daily usability and cost considerations. So before we even look at sentiments or topics, the data already hints that adoption's readiness is closely linked to practicality. Moving to sentiment analysis, this pie chart shows that overall sentiment distribution using weather. Almost half of the comments are positive, which indicates that Malaysians are generally open to EV adoptions. However, about 30% are neutral, and this group is very important. They are not rejecting EVs, but they are still evaluating and waiting. Negative sentiment is the smallest group, around 19.9%, and mainly revolve around battery lifespan, charging inconvenience, and ownership cost. If we look at the word cloud, sometimes something interesting happens. The same words like batteries and charging appear in both positive and negative sentiment. So the issue is not the topic itself, but how people interpret it. In short, people are not anti-EV, they are just being careful buyers and consumers. Now, let's move on to the LDA results. First, this graph shows the coherence score against the number of topics. The highest coherence score occurs at 5 topics, which indicates the most interpretable and meaningful structure. Next, the inter-topic distance map visualizes how this topic relates to each other. Each bubble represents a topic, and the size shows how dominant that topic is. We can see that the topics are distant but still related, which makes sense because issues like cost, battery, and charging are interconnected. The 5 dominant topics identified are the total cost of ownership, charging infrastructure, battery lifetime, EV versus petrol car comparisons, and overall adoption readiness. This confirms that EV discussion in Malaysia are largely shaped by practical feasibility rather than the policy incentive or environmental messaging. To conclude, this study successfully addressed all 4 research objectives. First, sentiment analysis revealed that public perception toward EVs in Malaysia is generally positive, showing openness to adoptions. However, the large proportions of neutral sentiment suggest that many consumers are still cautious. They are evaluating practically before committing. Second, LDA topic modeling identified 5 dominant themes, all of which are closely related to real-life ownership concerns such as cost, charging access, and battery performance. Most importantly, when these findings are viewed together, they show that EV adoption readiness in Malaysia is influenced by more practical feasibility than environmental awareness or policy incentive alone. Like any study, this research also has several limitations. First, the data was collected only from YouTube, which may not fully represent the entire Malaysian population, especially individuals who are less active on social media. Second, the use of lexicon-based sentiment analysis may not fully capture sarcasm or cultural expressions commonly found in online discussion. Third, translating multilingual comments into English may introduce minor changes in the meaning. For future research, this limitation can be addressed by incorporating data from multiple platforms, applying more advanced or multilingual NLP models, and integrating demographic or geographic analysis. Overall, this study demonstrates that social media analytics provide valuable real-world insight and serve as a strong complement to traditional survey-based research. That's all from me. Thanks for your time and had a great day.